Remember that one time when Hermes Trismegistus said, "You are God"? Well, neither do I, because I wasn't there. But thanks to probably some random ambitious Byzantine copyist, we have these. These beautiful texts were written pseudonymously by the name Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary fusion of the Egyptian Thoth and Greek god Hermes. These writings are probably remnants of an initiatory system that would bring the reader or the initiate into various stages of truth, getting closer and closer to what the Greeks called Gnosis. Gnosis, as opposed to episteme, I don't know how you pronounce that because I read a lot, is direct knowledge as opposed to discursive thought, which is conversational, analytical, the thoughts that are passing through your mind right now. Unlike those thoughts, Gnosis is a direct experience of the absolute truth. And that's the main concern of the Corpus Hermeticum. These texts have been interpreted in so many ways, giving rise to many interesting origin stories of several fantastical esoteric orders, secret doctrines, and modern remixes of perennial wisdom by super enthused YouTubers. What I'm going to be sharing in this video is some of my favorite moments of the Corpus Hermeticum that I find the most direct in terms of leading the reader right into that absolute Gnosis. You may find these heretical, they're definitely hermetic, and I can assure you they are quite holographic. When you get to teachings of this level, it's a truth that is so subtle it exists everywhere all at once in every moment. So like a hologram, the design of the whole can be seen in every one of its parts. In this video, I'm only going to be speaking about a few of my favorite moments in the 17 Greek treatises of the Corpus Hermeticum proper. I'll be reading from this edition, which was edited by Pascal Beverly Randolph. It's not the definitive version, but I kind of like this one better, and it has a lot of notes in it. So before we dive into this, and it's going to be a lot to dive into, I want to prime you with some things to consider. Most of the Corpus Hermeticum is a dialogue between Hermes Trismegistus and his student Asclepius or his son Tat, except Pymander, which is Hermes' own mystical experience. In these discourses, Hermes is attempting to show his students the absolute truth. And he actually says in some of the treatises that he can only offer them the direction, he can only point to the truth, he cannot give it directly to them because it is no thing to give. And so before we start, I want to share with you an exercise that I run with my students. It's kind of an experiment. The tricky thing about mysticism, especially more radical teachings like monism and non-duality, which are very present in the Corpus Hermeticum, is that the truth that we are looking for is not an object. It's not a physical thing, it's not a thought, it's not a philosophy. It is that through which all of those exist. What we're looking to experience or know, that gnosis, is absolute true existence. And this is why a lot of this work can be so paradoxical. The paradoxes point out the limits of language and discursive thought to transmute it. This is why in a lot of mystical traditions, you can only go through the tradition through a teacher who has been so well trained not to give you the truth, but to create very specific conditions for you to know it yourself. Because the truth is, you are the truth. You are existence. You are consciousness. It's all happening right here, right now. And there's nowhere you need to go to get it because there's nowhere where it is not. And that brings me to this exercise. If you do this exercise with me, I promise this material will come much easier and will give you a whole lot more fun revelation. So I want you to find the beginning of your body in space. Let's start with the top of our head. So if we are looking at a beginning and ending to our body in space, we might say it begins at the top of the head and maybe it ends at the bottom of our feet, okay? You could also do it from shoulder to shoulder. You can say it starts on your right side, ends on your left side. Take a moment to draw a couple dimensions in that way. Now I'd like you to find the beginning and ending of your own consciousness. Now, I'm not talking about mind, I'm talking about awareness. See if you can find the edges of your awareness. The thing is, you will never find the edges of your awareness because your awareness is infinite. It is limitless, it has no boundaries, it has no edges, and within your awareness, all things show up, including your body, including your mind, including your thoughts, including all of your experiences. They all show up in your boundless awareness. Now, when we go into the Corpus Hermeticum, what we're going to be exploring is this boundless awareness, which the Corpus uses the word mind. The Hermetica presents us with a world that exists within the mind of God, and within that world exists us. But in that mind, in that boundless awareness consciousness, which you are taking part in, notice how you can't show that. I can't show you that I'm conscious. I mean, I can look at you. You can see my eyes. My body may be engaged in communication. It may suggest attention, but there is no way I can show you consciousness, because everything I show you will exist within consciousness. This is the important paradox, and this is what we have to remember when we get into this. Okay, now I want to push just a bit further. So if I haven't scared you away yet, here's the next step. So we know that the body has a beginning and ending in space and in time, and we know that awareness does not. The next step is to realize that all things that have a beginning or an ending exist within awareness. So anything that has a beginning or an ending in time is something that is made, done, or different in relationship to something else. And anything that has a beginning or an ending is something that changes. It has to change to be born, and it has to change to die or dissolve or go into something else, right? All of these attributes are of things. Things. If it is a thing, it is defined. If it is defined, there is something that it is not. If it is something that it is not, it is something that is done, made, different, or changeable. All things that are done, made, different, or changeable exist within something else. Otherwise, there would be no reference point for the thing being done, the thing changing, the thing being different, or the thing being made. If it's made, it needs a maker. If it's done, it needs someone to do it. If it's different, it needs something to be different from. And if it changes, there has to be something it is changing from. All of these are dual. All of these have a before and an after, or a here or a there, whether that's in time or space or in other dimensions. All of those qualities exist in something that transcends them all. Awareness. All of these things can only be said to exist by some awareness, or we might say some existence. Another metaphor we can use for this is different colors of paint on a canvas. All the colors are different, and they're in different shapes and different textures, yet they all exist on the canvas. If what I'm saying to you sounds like Advaita Vedanta or Neoplatonism or even some aspects of Buddhism, that's because it is. Now, this may be my staunch perennialist side speaking, but I truly believe that at the core of all of these deep levels of self-inquiry, there exists this one truth. I mean, truth is universal by definition. Okay, let's just crack open this book already. So I'm going to start with his 7th book, his Secret Sermon in the Mount of Regeneration and the Profession of Silence. In this edition, this would be verse number 22 that I'm reading from. Tat says to Hermes, "This mortal form is daily changed." Oh, remember, change, anything that is made, done, different, or changed is a piece of something else, and it owes its existence to that which is aware of it. So he says, the form is daily changed and turned by time into increase and diminution. I don't know how to pronounce that word because I read a lot. As being falsehood. What therefore is true, O Trismegistus? Hermes says, that, O sun, which is not troubled, nor bounded, nor colored, not figured, not changed, that which is naked, bright, comprehensible only of itself, unalterable, unbodily. Sounds a lot like that consciousness. Remember before when I said it would be impossible for me to show you consciousness or you to show me consciousness? Because anything that I were to show you exists within consciousness, whether your consciousness or mine. It's really one consciousness. That consciousness is naked, right? Let's talk about the word naked. Naked, I love the word naked to describe consciousness because it's not, it is not dressed in anything. There is no vestige of consciousness. It just is. It's the isness behind something. So this is a YouTube video, but the isness is your experience of it within your consciousness. The isness is the agency of the knower, the beholder. It's that ultimate first person that all of this reality is showing itself to, which is one. But that's the radical unity that we're headed to, right? So he describes it as naked, bright. He describes it as bright. Bright consciousness illumines all experience. This is a big metaphor used in the Upanishads with the sun. They describe like the sun, I believe, as consciousness illumining everything, but being unaffected by anything. And we're going to get into that same metaphor in a couple verses if we get there. Comprehensible only of itself. Comprehensible only of itself. I cannot show you consciousness. You cannot show me consciousness. Consciousness can only comprehend itself. I think Swami Vivekananda said that enlightenment is consciousness becoming aware of itself. Okay, unalterable and unbodily. So no matter what shows up in consciousness, it stays the same. It's the blankness. The canvas is unaffected by whatever paint is on the canvas. The paint can be any color, can be alterable, can be changed, but the canvas is still the same. Okay, I'm going to skip to the 10th book, Hermes Trismegistus, The Mind to Hermes. All right. So this one in verse 50 of this edition says, "For he that maketh or doeth is in all things, yet not fastened or comprehended in anything, nor making or doing one thing, but all things." So remember when I said isness is what we're looking for? So like this is a YouTube video, but the YouTube video only exists because of the isness. The isness is your participation in watching it. And I do hope you're still watching. And if you are, yes, you want to hit that subscribe button? But anyway, there's an isness happening. And is a verb. It's not a noun. A noun is a thing. A thing is something done, made, different, or changeable. But the verb is that through which all the nouns show up and how they move and groove and dance with each other and make all types of sentences and whatever other type of grammar that I don't really know about. The is the one making and doing. And it's not just your mind. It's not just your first person perspective. It's even that through which the first person perspective shows up. It is the very existence through which we can have a first-person perspective opposed from a third-person perspective. Hermes says, "It is not fastened or comprehended in anything, nor making or doing one thing, but all things." So I made another video about this, but if you had a race, no matter who was in that race, literally you could find the craziest, the fastest runner, the fastest machinery, the fastest trainer plane, the fastest concept. You could literally find the fastest possible thing that exists in all of reality, and still what would win is consciousness, awareness. Consciousness, awareness is always at the end of the finish line, because before you even get there, or at least it ties, by the time you get there, your awareness is with you. Whatever unit gets to the end of the finish line, it can only get to that finish line only exists in that unit's awareness. So consciousness is always at the end of the finish line. And that's why I believe Hermes is saying it's not making or doing one thing, but all things. Okay, now we're going to get a little heretical. You ready for this? If you have really strong views about religion and this and that, you might want to tread lightly, and you can always wail at me in the comments. So here we go. At the beginning of the 11th book, Hermes Trismegistus, Of the Common Mind to Tat, he says, "The mind, O Tat, is of the very essence of God, if yet there be any essence of God. What kind of essence that is, he alone knows himself exactly. The mind, therefore, is not cut off or divided from the essentiality of God, but united as the light of the sun." Remember I said that sun metaphor was coming up in a couple of verses? This same metaphor is used in the Upanishads, and I'm sure Plato uses it. Probably mysticism and philosophy, it's the sun, it's hard to miss. But the sun is used as this metaphor for consciousness, because like consciousness, the sun illumines, but the sun's light is not affected by what it illumines. It's still light, it's still radiant, it's still bright, and looking at it is not always easy to do, which is what this is trying to do here. You could look at the sun and go blind, and people do. So this is not New Age 101 stuff, but let's keep going. Okay, so he says, "The mind, therefore, is not cut off or divided from the essentiality of God, but united as the light of the sun. And this mind in men is God. and therefore are some men divine, and their humanity is near divinity. In the Upanishads, they use the words, and this is obviously the probably not super accurate English translation, but they use the words, the space within the heart. What this has been expressed as by Vedantic teachers is within the intellect. In ancient India, the heart was considered the intellect. It was considered the space of where the essence of you existed, but still a space nonetheless. So the Upanishads talk about the space within the heart, and in that space within the heart is the Atman, is the self, and the self is Brahma. The self is the absolute existence, consciousness, bliss. In the Corpus Hermeticum, it says that this is in the mind of men. So in the mind of men, you can realize this absolute truth. And this, to me, is what Swami Vivekananda says when he says consciousness becoming aware of itself. This is that famous verse of Exodus when God says to Moses, I am that I am. The formula of the most profound mystical sayings are that of the Mahavakyas. The Mahavakyas are statements of your true nature, the most famous one being, thou art that, tat tvamasi. There's the thou, there's the that, and there's the you being it. This, to me, is also the Philosopher's Stone. And I know a lot of you will say, oh, the Philosopher's Stone is a urine crystal. And I'm like, come on, can we just move past the material? I'll share with you one last verse of the Corpus Hermeticum, and this is probably my favorite one of all time. In the 17th book, Hermes Trismegistus to Asclepius, to be truly wise, he says in verse 18, for all things are but two things, that which maketh and that which is made, and the one of them cannot depart or be divided from the other. For neither is it possible that the maker should be without the thing made, for either of them is the self same thing. Therefore cannot the one of them be separated from the other, no more than a thing can be separated from itself. Sounds like non-duality, or at least monism to me. This encapsulates perfectly what I was talking about in my video on as above, so below, the famous Hermetic axiom of the Emerald Tablet. I will link that video below. But in this one verse is the most profound thing, and I swear this is the thing that, I don't know, this is the realization that has helped me experience so much joy. It's the realization that the made and the maker are absolute one. And I used to conceptualize consciousness as this, and it is this boundless, invisible, unspeakable non-thing. But when you, the next level after that, the next level after seeing consciousness as the canvas of which all of experience, the paint, is painted on, the next level is realizing that not only is consciousness the canvas, but consciousness is the capacity and the event of painting as well. Consciousness is absolute, is the isness, it's the going forth, it's the infinite outpouring in every possible direction, the ultimate creative act, which is eternally now, which is the only moment, and you are that. Absolutely undifferentiated, non-separate, completely saturated in this one creative act that alone happens. And when you recognize that, there is no difference. There is nothing made. There is no action to be taken, and there is no change, ultimately. And then you have nothing to lose. If you're interested in this kind of thing, I have a whole school about this kind of stuff called the Tarot Mysticism Academy. I have free courses, free downloads, and other resources. You can find more information about that in the description. And let me know what you think in the comments. Again, this is my slightly perennialist, definitely non-dual, slightly monist interpretation of the Corpus Hermeticum. I hope you had fun. If you have any questions, let me know. Much love, and I'll see you in the next wormhole.